Hey there, kings and queens. My name is Kincaid McMinn, and you're watching the Kingly Love YouTube channel. So, I have a date that I'm going to tonight. I'm getting ready for it right now. And as me and this girl were discussing things and trying to plan things out, I was reminded of a story, like a personal story, came to mind, and I feel like it would be beneficial for you all to hear. So, a couple of months ago, and this is something that if you're a guy, you may not really be familiar with. If you're a girl, you're probably all too familiar with this feeling. A couple months ago, I was out at a fun little trivia night, and I sat across the table from two wonderful gay gentlemen, and we were having a good time, and we decided to form up and pair a team together, me and these two gentlemen. And we were having a good time, having some laughs, yada yada. And at the end of the night, we were about to part ways, and me and one of the gentlemen were really kind of feeling each other. We were really sending out some good energy and receiving good energy. We were flirting. We were kind of, picking me up because I'm a small person. He was a little bit bigger than I was, so he picked me up and it was a really good time. But at the end of the night, he offered to take me back to his place. And it was in that moment that I experienced for the first time in my life something that is probably all too familiar for a lot of the female audience that we have here. And that's that moment of, if I go back with this guy, something's going to happen. Do I want it to happen? And I began going through a list of things in my brain that was like, oh man, I don't know if I could do this, should I do it? It came down to that decisive moment. I had to make the decision, I had to make the call on whether something was okay or not, whether I was okay with something happening or not. And I've done this before being on the aggressor side. This was the first time being on the receiving end, and for the first time in my life, I had this wonderful glimpse into the female mind as to what it's like to be really hit on and then have to make that decision of, do I want things to escalate beyond this point? And it's really fascinating. And as I was kind of brainstorming ideas for videos, this came up to mind as I was planning this date with this girl. And I wanted to kind of delineate for some of the members of the male audience who may have never really thought about this before, some of the factors that goes through a female brain or goes through the receiver's brain when an aggressor makes an offer. Whenever someone makes an offer to you and then the receiver has to make a decision, it has to weigh several different options. So I wanted to delineate some of those factors to you. So whenever you're hanging out with someone, you're having a good time, and then a person says, hey, let's go to blank. Let's go to a bar. Let's go back to my place. Let's go to this other restaurant. Let's go, we've had really good dinner. Let's go for a walk around the park and just let our food digest. There are lots of questions that kind of pop into a brain really quickly. Here are just a few of them. How close have they been physically to me tonight? Have they been within my comfort zone? Have they been too close? Have they been up in my comfort zone, making me feel uncomfortable, and were they able to notice that and back off? How did they read my body language in response? How far is the destination from safety? When I was, talking to that gentleman, we were already about 20 or 30 minutes away from my house, we were about 20, 30 minutes away from my home at the time. And then we were about, his house was about 45, 50 minutes away from my house. So I thought, man, that is a long drive. If things get weird, it'll be late at night. It was already 10:30 at night whenever we were talking about this. It would be a long night. I have work in the next morning, which is another thing. Do I have work the next morning? Do I have to be up early? How forceful is the invitation? Is it a, hey, do you want to go for a walk around the park? Or is it a, hey, let's get out of here. Let's go back to my, how forceful is it? And then how do they take small disappointments? If you're on a date with somebody, how do they take the small disappointments? If someone's taken their parking spot, or if, you're sitting next to a loud couple at dinner, how do they take those kind of small disappointments, or maybe they don't have the item on the menu? How do they handle that? Do they handle that gracefully and just say, hey, that's cool, let's roll with it? Or do they get upset? Do they get frustrated about these things? Because how they handle those small disappointments may be a clue as to how one might handle bigger disappointments whenever an offer is made and then potentially denied. So those are some things that, keep in mind. Let's see. And then how transparent has the offerer, the aggressor, been throughout the evening? Have they been sharing as well? Has what they've said and what they've done been congruent? Have they been, engaging in fun little banter? How has the banter been? Banter is such a great indicator of potential compatibility, and also how safe someone is. If they have great banter and what they say, they're being transparent, they're telling you, and if you're asking questions, they're not dodging or trying to, use some sort of weird tactics to avoid answering the question, you can trust the individual a little bit more, and you're more likely to feel comfortable around them. So those are just a couple of things, gosh, what time is it? How well do I know this person? How far is it from my house? What are these safety factors? Those are some of the things that go through a receiver's mind whenever an aggressor makes an offer. And, then what are some different, so now that we've kind of illustrated some of those factors, here are some wonderful solutions to where if you're faced with, if let's say that you're the aggressor and you make an offer and someone says no, here's how to handle it. Here's some solutions on how to handle that. Because when you're going when you're going on a date with somebody, you like somebody and you're kind of trying to feel them out, and you try to make an offer to try to extend the good times, and someone says no, that can kind of hurt your feelings a little bit too. So here's how you can handle that. Number one, try to call out the elephant in the room. Chances are that if they said no to your initial offer, there's something that they don't quite feel comfortable about. So one potential thing is you could try to negotiate, call out the elephant in the room and say, all right, cool, what would be something that you would like to do that would be a little more in your comfort zone? What can we do to make you feel more comfortable? That is a great option. Not what do I need to do to get this person to do what I want. That's not what we're talking about here. It's what can I do to make you feel more comfortable to where you want to continue having a good time. It's a totally different thing. Next, be okay with their boundaries or changing plans. If somebody says no, be totally cool with it. Say, like when we were planning this weekend, when I was planning my date for tonight, I said, okay, do you want me to pick you up or do you want to meet somewhere? The girl said, hey, having a stranger pick me up is not a part of my, meeting strangers for the first time rules. And I said, that is an absolute fair rule. That is totally cool. I am absolutely fine with that. Let's meet somewhere instead. Be okay with their boundaries. Be okay with changing plans. Again, handling small disappointments how you handle those small disappointments is going to influence how you handle bigger disappointments if you make an offer and things have to change. And then lastly, I'd say exercise empathy. This is such a crazy thing. Exercise empathy. Understand what it feels like to be on the receiving end of these things, how much pressure it is. You don't want to hurt that person's feelings either, especially if you've been feeling good, having a good time with them, and then they make an offer that you're not quite comfortable with. You don't necessarily want to say no because you don't want to hurt their feelings. But it's so important that you set healthy boundaries. So as the aggressor, understand where they're coming from. Understand how they feel and why they're saying no, and then be okay with that. And then also acknowledge the fact that as a society, men are taught to be aggressive, and just if someone says no, it's not a no, that's just an objection that you can overcome to get to a yes. And sometimes that's the case, but just absolutely respect a no. If they say no, I'm not interested, respect that and walk away. Understand that as a society, men have been so programmed and conditioned to be the aggressor and to continue forward until you get the answer that you want, that creates a lot of issues. And it could be very well that it could be so ingrained in us that you may even have a hard time recognizing that behavior or recognizing that pattern, and that's okay. That's what this video is for, is to help kind of call it out a little bit, help you draw attention to the fact that, yeah, I do have this pattern of I've been taught that no doesn't mean no, no just means try harder. No, guys, don't misunderstand this. A no is a no. I've got to get going because I have a lot of stuff to do before my date tonight, but those are some of my thoughts just as I'm getting ready about how we as a society, how it feels to be both an aggressor in a situation and how to offer, you know, a selection of things that may make the receiver feel more comfortable, and also understand how a receiver feels to be offered something, and how, you know, things that they factor in to their personal safety and how that affects their decision making. So this has been just a bit of a rambling video, a bit of a rant. I hope you all enjoy this. I've got to get ready. Until next time that I see you, love like royalty.